as promised, it's time for wine. I'm going to make a confession to you. A, I've said the word again right off the bat, and I'm sorry about that. B, I know nothing about wine. I absolutely know nothing. And I go to posh restaurants and I, mingle and I pretend, but I actually know nothing. And I'm sorry, but I just don't care. But I do want to kind of save face at dinner parties. I want to be able to buy a nice bottle of wine. I want to, look like I know what I'm doing at a restaurant. So I've started this basic 101 course online to do the dumb questions for you. So today we're going to start with my friend Jürgen, who's in town from Spain, who has an extensive background in the wine industry. And he's going to help me and be very patient with me about wine. So, hey Jürgen.
Good morning.
So, man, the dumb questions are just going to start. Okay, what's the difference between the wines? Chardonnays and blah blah blahs and blah blah blahs. I mean.
Yeah, I mean basically wine is made of two different kinds of grapes, whites and red. That was self-explanatory, but that's how it is. And you produce obviously white from white grapes, but you can also produce white wine from red grapes. In the case of Champagne, for example, the Champagne is made with Pinot Noir, which is a red variety. We get into that later, but it's you can actually produce white wine from red grapes as well. Rosé could be it's normally produced with red varieties, but there's always, well not always, but sometimes some white varieties coming into the show as well. And we talk about that later as well, I guess. And then you have the red wines, which is obviously red varieties, but there are sometimes cases with red wines not produced with white varieties, but they use some white grapes to improve the quality as well, especially for about acidity or yeah. I mean, little by little we're going to get into that as well.
Yeah, because you just confused me more.
Yeah, I know.
You told me something I didn't know, but confused me more, but that's all right.
Okay.
We start back at the basics. Right?
Yeah. So these are the colors of the wines, but there are also I mean, there are sparkling wines and different kinds of sparkling wine and different ways of producing sparkling wines. There are sweet wines, there are natural sweet wines and fortified wines. There are biologic aged wines, for example, the Jerez wines or Jerez wines and the Jura wines. What else? Yeah, I think that, well, port wine, of course, but that is a sweet wine, a fortified wine. And, I mean, wines are basically white, red, and rosé, but, I mean, you're going to see some brown wine as well. And
it's called whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, brown wine could be a problem, but it could also be a very, very interesting thing. We get into the brown wine, I guess, later on. So, yeah.
But why does it seem? It seems kind of like in the U.S. there's a different way of ordering wine than in the rest of the world. Am I wrong there? Because when we go back, people go up and go, "I want a Chardonnay," but I don't hear that in the rest of the world when you go and order something. Why is that? What's the?
I think that the Americans they are buying wine, ordering wine per variety. It could also be an issue, well, not an issue, but people they maybe only know about Chardonnay because Chardonnay is the most well-known white variety, and there's a lot of snobism and a lot of bullshit in wine. So you go to a bar and you don't want to look that you don't know anything, so you might I have a glass of Chardonnay because that sounds.
And I've done that before. So
okay, or you get a glass of Tempranillo, or you get a glass of I don't know, but I think it's about that because you have to know. Sometimes people like to presume that they know at least a little bit about wine. So if they're sure that Chardonnay is actually a grape, it's not a special wine from a special region. Okay, a glass of Chardonnay. You follow what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Just to make sure that that you're behaving correctly. I think the same thing happens in Spain, for example. People, a glass of Tempranillo. I think it's a kind of common thing to do. It's not about bad self-esteem regarding wine, but I think it's, you know, you want to be sure that you don't screw up in the restaurant because. Okay, now we're getting to the more philosophical way of thinking and of ordering wine, but all the buzz about wine and you know, there's so many people that want to know about wine, but I think that very few people actually know about wine. But still, the mass needs to show off or show that they know at least a little. You know, ordering wine, or even, you know, when the waiter pours the wine to you in the restaurant, and the people start to sniffing, and
okay,
they have no idea
this is something really good to start into. Okay, when they come to the table,
yeah,
and you've ordered your wine, and they pour a little bit in.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that they're actually doing? I mean, you're tasting. Some people think you're tasting to see if it's bad, and some people don't know what a bad tasting wine is, or why actually are we doing that? So.
Well, it is about that, because, you know, in a restaurant with thousands of bottles of wine, obviously there will be some bottles with problems. It could be a cork defect, or it could be like an oxidation or any problem with the wine. And basically what the sommelier or the waiter is doing is he's showing you the wine so you can taste it or smell it and taste it to see that everything is okay. It's about that. It's funny though, because, you know, people that had no clue about wine, they start to, you know, moving around the glass and you know, yeah.
So if you're doing that, then
yeah.
you're just being a wanker,
well,
basically.
I wouldn't
because you
say
don't
that,
need to do that. You just need to taste it and go, right, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's enough with smelling it, because I mean, it depends on the wine, of course. If you're ordering like a basic wine or a house wine or maybe something a little extra, but you know, not low end, but just a regular wine. You just want to make sure that the wine is okay. There's not a problem with it. If you order a bottle of a very expensive Bourgogne that's been aged for 30 years or something like that, could be a risk that there could be some problem with the wine. You need to, you know, look for something else, you know, to make sure that the wine is correct, like it was supposed to be, or is supposed to be at that age. But that is a different chapter, I think. When you're in the restaurant, when you order just a bottle of wine, you just want to make sure that the wine is correct.
And when you say, is it correct, it's not that you're, like you said, it's not that you're looking to see if it tastes not to your liking, it's that you're looking to see if it's corked. And can you explain corked?
Yeah, yeah, we can go into the cork thing, because that is what, you know, the easy way of well, not the easy way, that's the first thing that you should look for. With this wine, there's a screw cap on, so it won't make any sense. But this wine is with a natural cork. Well, in this case, it could be a plastic cork anyway, but I think it's a natural cork. Well, there's a thing called TCA, which is this is mumbo jumbo nerd speak anyway now, but it's a bacteria that affects the cork and makes, well, it destroys the cork and creates this awful smell of bad cork. A cork should smell, you know, of cork. A good cork, like, it should smell fresh. And that is a problem in the winery. That is nothing that happens after. If the winery has a problem, or if the supplier of the cork has this problem with this bacteria, then the wine could be bottled with a bad cork. And then in the restaurant, the waiter opens up the bottle. If you detect the cork, then you know, you should change the bottle or ask for a new bottle, obviously.
Then he probably even won't bring it to the table then.
Well, if he's a good waiter and he's maybe, I mean, it depends on, because if it's a house wine, once again, maybe he won't taste the wine before he will leave it to you. If it's a very nice bottle of wine, there's a sommelier working, he might, you know, open up the bottle and make sure that everything is okay before showing the wine to you. I mean, there are different ways of doing that. But let's go back to the house wine or just the normal wine. Then normally you just uncork the bottle and serve it to you. So it's basically your responsibility to see if it's corked or not, or if it's defect or not. So and the cork is, you know, it's very obvious. There's no way that you can't there's no way that you can miss it. That's what I like to say.
It's the taste and the smell.
Well, it's
combined.
Smell. It's a smell. It's more the smell than the taste.
Well, I've had wine that's kind of, I mean, I don't know anything about wine, but I've had wine that you can taste has kind of gone to vinegar or kind of funky taste. That's not the same issue?
No, it's not the same issue.
Okay.
I mean, wine...
Because I always assumed it was, so...
Okay. I mean, it could be a mix, but it's basically two different kinds of defects.
Okay.
And vinegar. We go into vinegar, I guess, later. But you can also, you know, there could be other problem with the wine that the wine has gone flat. You know, in the restaurant they kept the wine for a longer time than they're supposed to, because in some wines, for example, this case, which is Albarino from Rías Baixas in Galicia. This is 09, and you should drink this wine during this year, or preferably even last year, I would say. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's with a screw cap on, so it will, you know, the wine will stay the same for a couple of years. But these wines are better young when they're fresh, and the acidity is very vivid and it's crisp, and it's nice drinking them.